One thing that I encourage everybody to do is to pray for their past self. And in this suggestion and encouragement, I find that the past can communicate with the present and the future. But is it possible that the future can communicate with the present and the past? Because you could pray for your future self to guide your present self, right? Like you could pray for that. But if that's the case, then are you, who are the thing that transforms through time, because you are an immortal soul, can you actually shock yourself into who you become? And that's really something to think about, because maybe you can shock yourself into who you can become, and maybe you can't. But maybe you're going to shock other people in who you're becoming as well. And I know that in my past and in my present, I'm still continuing to do that. A lot of people think that they know me simply because they either watch my videos or they see me out in my physical community and they know where I go or what I do exactly, and they think that they know me. And to me, I just think to myself, like, you can't contain this. Like, you can't contain me, man. You can't contain me. I am uncontainable in this vessel. I know that I am an immortal soul and a divine being that is becoming ever closer to God each and every day. And the more that I embody the law, statutes, and commandments of God, the more I'm going to be able to live out the truth. And at this point in my life, I really only want two things. I want the truth and then a good business so that I can continue forward with this construct, this simulation, whatever you want to call this reality. Because the way that I think about it is, what has happened has happened. And I got this from a movie recently that I had watched, and I usually watch movies on Friday nights. Just once a week I'll watch a movie just as part of my ritual. I'll have the cheat meal for the week, and I don't even like calling it a cheat meal really. It's just like an extra calorie meal. And then I'll have my movie night. And last night I watched this movie, Tenet. And it was a very fascinating movie. I've never seen this movie before, never really heard much about it. But wowzers, was it fascinating. And I don't even want to spoil it for anybody out there because it was just that good. But it got me thinking a lot about time. And it got me thinking a lot about the inversion of time and what that looks like. Because I already think about these things, but this allowed me to think about it in a very different kind of way. And I think that there's a lot of people who are just too asleep to recognize the sorrow of the world and to recognize the joy of the world. You know, it's been very snowy for the last couple days here where I'm at, and now today it looks like it's going to melt for a little while because it's a bit warmer and the sun is shining outside in this morning, and we'll see what happens. But a lot of people are complaining about the snow. And I myself, I like the snow. I like the beauty of the snow. I like the quiet of the snow. I like how when you go outside at night, the whole land kind of glows with the moonlight shining down on the snow. I like that. I think it's a beautiful time of year, even though it's bitter cold. And yeah, you don't want to be out there for too long. But I think it's a beautiful time of year. And I love to go walking around in this time of year because it's just so quiet. Like the snow acts as a buffer to all of the noise around you, right? And sometimes I like to go up to the canyon and I'll walk along the riverside because there's a river that might freeze or it might not, depending on how cold it is. And sometimes if you can just hear the water and running through the stream, just little bits of here, maybe there's the ice that have covered the river and all of that, and you can hear these things, you can feel the You can feel the settled reality of the existence in that moment, right? You can just feel ah, like there's a sense of peace to it, I feel. And a lot of people get depressed around this time of year, and I have no clue why. I think seasonal depression is a psyop. I really do. Because a lot of people are just, they're convinced that they themselves are depressed. They're convinced that they themselves are anxious and all this stuff. And it's like, there's no utility in this kind of thinking. And this is something else that's going to shock people. Once you get to a point in your Godlike mastery initiation protocol where you have a sense of self-mastery, it's going to be ever prevalent and relevant to your reality that thinking about being depressed or anxious is not useful in any way, shape, or form. And going to the parties, going to do this, going to do that, like, even when I'm watching a movie, like last night, I'm taking notes of what's going on and why things are happening. Like, I am experiencing the movie. I don't, that's just me. I'm not saying that that's what everybody should do, but I'm just saying that I like to live in a way that even if I watch a movie, I can think about my existence and I can ponder the reality, but I can also just not have a deep single thought if I don't need to. Like, I'm not trying to be in that deep place all the time, because there's a time and a place, there's a season for everything, like the Bible says, right? And right now, I'm in a season of deep recognition and pattern recognition and understanding of the reality for what it truly is. And in that movie, Tenet, it talks about several times of what's happened has happened. And that in of itself is reality. And I think to myself, okay, well, so if we can communicate with our past selves, right? Like, if you can pray for your past self, does that mean that you are effectively time traveling? You know, like, what exactly does the inversion of time look like? Can you visualize something to the point in which you can invert time? You know, that's really something to think about. And maybe, quantum physics people and a psychologist will have a field day with that, but I genuinely think that it's possible. And I know that I don't even think that it's possible. I know that it's possible. I just don't know how. I don't know how I do it. I don't know how, because think about synchronicities as well. I'm sure people who have had synchronicities, I wondered this last night after watching Tenet. I was pondering, and I thought to myself, I wonder if synchronicities could be like little glimpses of not only angels or demons, or because some synchronicities are not angelic and some synchronicities are not they're not really holy, let's just say that, right? But some synchronicities, I wonder if it's your past self communicating with you, or your future self communicating with you, depending on, like, just your consciousness, because we don't really know the ways in which consciousness will interact with the relationship between itself and with other people without actually being in the relationship. Okay, like with Buddhism, for example, and again, I follow Christ, but I like to be able to look at different perspectives. In Buddhism, there's you, and then there's this other person, and then there's the relationship. You and this other person exist in the relationship. The relationship is what's real. It's like you, in Buddhism, when you're detached from yourself, this is the way that they think about it. I'm not saying this is what I prescribe to or what I don't prescribe to. I'm just saying that this is the information. So there's you, and then there's this other person, and you exist in the relationship. You are effectively the relationship of consciousness at that point between the two people. But the consciousness is the relationship. So we can't really know whether or not there is this relationship of consciousness in any particular way. outside of the present moment. Like, that's one of the reasons why betrayal is so interesting, right? Betrayal is you think that there's a consciousness that there actually isn't. And that's like a form of deception, right? That's witchcraft. That's deception is witchcraft by definition, gaslighting, etc. Narcissists are basically magicians. They just don't know it. And all these politicians, all the governments, the universities that are fake, the education system as a whole, all of our institutions, you having to have like credentials in order to do certain things. Like, the only reason that we have credentials, for example, is because you it's a basic, easy way of demonstrating that you know what you're doing. Because again, it's a recognition of consciousness in your relationship with one another. Like, there's a recognition of understanding that this person is capable of what you want to see happen in the future. Okay? Like, that's why with a personal trainer, for example, right? Like, if you get a personal trainer, like, I've done personal training in my one-on-ones a little bit here and there, but it's not really I wouldn't say it's my area of expertise specifically. My area of expertise specifically is the spiritual domain and intersexual dynamics. It's not necessarily the physical, but I would say that you can't really master the spiritual and the intersexual domain without mastering the physical. You just cannot. It's because the soul cannot really survive or even thrive without being fully integrated and aligned with the body, and vice versa. So this is where the more that you come into yourself, the more that you're aligned with yourself, you're going to shock other people, because they're starting to see that there's this authenticity brewing inside of you, and they don't know how to handle it, bro. They don't know how to handle it. They just don't. And so what you're going to be doing is completely off their radar. And spiritual blindness is going to be an ever-present possibility for a lot of people. Because if you're not, because let's say you're very devout in your practices. Well, that's all that it is. It's a practice. And that makes you a fanatic by definition. Okay? But if you have the ability to discern that which is true, and you know that you're capable of being wrong, but you are also sure that like this is the way that I put it. I'm sure that I'm sure about where I am in life. However, I'm also pretty sure that I don't have all the information that I could have in this present moment. And this is why I'm so fascinated with the possibility of the future me speaking to the present me. Because I know the present me can pray for my past self. But is it possible that we can do that without participating in any kind of form of sorcery or witchcraft? Right? Is that possible? Is it possible that we can still be in the law, statutes, and commandments of God and not try to manipulate the linear time without having it snap back? Because guess what? You can't bend the fabric of reality, but can you move through it specifically, right? You can't manipulate the fabric of reality, but can you really recognize, and can you act in accordance to the laws that are there? Some people will call them natural laws. Some people call them spiritual laws. I think really natural and spiritual laws are the same thing. For all intents and purposes, they're the same thing. It doesn't really matter what frame or what title you put on it. The laws of nature are going to be the laws of nature, and those are both spiritual and natural. So you have to recognize also that the depths of this understanding is going to be incumbent upon you to determine how truthful you're being with yourself. Okay, are you actually being truthful with yourself, or are you a fanatic? Are you a fanatic? Are you spiritually blinding yourself to the point to where you don't even see your fanaticism? Okay, And you want to be very careful about that, because that will make you a mad person. Like you'll be a madman or a mad woman, right? And you won't even know it. Now, I also think that it's appropriate and even encouraged to be on the line of madness and genius. I don't think that you can really, like, think about how creative people really are, right? Because in a way, creativity is a channeling of the subconscious. I wouldn't necessarily call it programming, but it's like the channeling of subconscious understanding, and wanting to visualize and capitalize on what you know to make manifest something that you don't know that can be. Okay, because, whoa, I just thought about creativity as a form of time travel. Huh. That's an interesting thought. Yeah, because you're really creating the future. Like, creativity is molding the future. Creativity in of itself is a form of time travel. And those that are not creative, truly creative, those that are not truly creative, they are not going to be able to be aligned with their spirit properly, because, holy moly, I'm like having a revelation about this in real time. So the way that we think about time, like, think about all the people that treat their fiction and their illusions and their ideologies as fact. Okay, but those are fanatics, right? They are by definition fanatics. A fanatic by definition cannot be creative, but only the authentic person who can properly, literally time, like, you're time traveling through yourself. Like, you are the vessel. Like, why is it the case that you have to work for what you want? Well, because you're actually demonstrating that you yourself are the vehicle. You are the time machine. Like, your body, your vessel is the time machine, but your consciousness is, and your soul is immortal. You are the immortal divine soul. So, geez Louise, I'm gonna have to think more on that and how to articulate that more efficiently and effectively. I think I did an okay job there, but perhaps people in the comments can nurture that thought and that thought process more so. But yeah, this is why true creativity is important, and just regurgitating information is dangerous. Now, it's not to say that, like, true creativity and true original thought is very difficult, right? Like, it's very difficult to have true original thought and true original ideas, because there's so many, like, even the Bible says, right, nothing new under the sun. Well, what exactly does that mean? What exactly does that mean, nothing new under the sun? Does that mean you're nothing new because you're under the sun? Does that mean the material things are nothing new? How much of this reality is recycled? How much of this reality is inverted, you might say? How much of this reality is not inverted? What if is it possible that entropy can move backward depending on the possibilities in the object? That was really the idea with the movie Tenet, right? Was is it possible, and what would it look like if it's possible to move objects backwards, like have their entropy going backwards? How would that look like? And it's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting to think about. But can we do it spiritually, right? Like, can we do that spiritually? And I think we can. And I don't even need to really think about it, because I know that we can. It's just a matter of how. It's just a matter of how do we do that. So, with all that being said, I hope that this message was useful and insightful, or just expanding your mind and your consciousness a little bit. And stay blessed out there. Peace. Until next time.